love you. On Diego breeze, I love you. Echoes, I love you. The golden dawn agrees.
What makes San Diego so special?
She sees daffodils. It's spring again, and birds on the wing again. Start to sing.
San Diego is known for its 70 miles of coastline, but most people aren't aware that the U.S. Navy and the Marines have a number of locations, bases, and resources within San Diego County. San Diego Bay is home to over 50 ships and is home port for the Pacific Fleet. Hang out at the San Diego Harbor for impressive views of our aircraft carriers, including the USS Midway, which is now a floating museum. San Diego is known for its extensive oceanography and marine biology research. It is known for its fine beaches, military presence, Mediterranean climate, world-renowned zoos, and plentiful museums. Historically, San Diego is known for being the first port town that served as a resting place for merchants traveling between Mexico and Asia. As the first permanent Spanish settlement, San Diego is also considered the birthplace of California. just one day, you can access an international border, delicious apple pie in Julian, and a gorgeous sunset over the ocean. The San Diego River originates in the Cuyamaca Mountains, gathering water from runoff, rain, assorted streams and reaches that flow downstream into Mission Valley. Mission Valley got its name from the presence of Mission San Diego de Alcala, as it was built there close to the freshwater source. The San Diego River currently discharges into the Pacific Ocean, near the entrance to Mission Bay, forming an estuary. But that wasn't always the river's course. The Native American Kumeyaay lived along the river for centuries. The river was a vital water source for them. Then in the 1700s, when the Spanish missionaries arrived, they too found the San Diego River as a resource to stabilize their colony. Over the history of settling the area, the river has both emptied into the San Diego Bay and sometimes into the ocean, depending on its course and frequent flooding. In the 1800s, when the city center had changed from Old Town to New Town, the river was diverted from flowing through New Town. The Derby Dike was built, running from Taylor Street out to Point Loma, redirecting the water into the ocean. As the area continued to develop, Mission Valley was then made up of farmlands, corrals, and dairies. Later the valley gave way to metropolitan infrastructure, as hotels, offices, apartment complexes, department stores, and automobile dealerships were built. Today, Mission Valley forms a transportation corridor for Interstate 8 and for the San Diego Trolley Green Line. In the 1960s, the growing city saw what seemed like non-stop ribbon cutting of wide, straight, toll-free interstate routes.
City construction contracts are awarded to the lowest competitive bidder. Careful supervision and adequate plans and specifications assure that the work and materials will be of the highest quality. Engineering inspectors make continuous inspections throughout the project. This is a safeguard the city provides to its citizens. It is the individual property owner who has a spirited interest in his or her neighborhood and entire community who has and will continue to have a vital role in keeping San Diego a city in motion.
One of the most anticipated was the crosstown freeway Interstate 5. The freeway removed traffic from surface streets, but wiped out dozens of blocks of neighborhoods in Little Italy, Sherman Heights, Golden Hills, and Logan Heights. No longer wanting to locate the freeway along the waterfront, the new route split Balboa Park from downtown. With the construction of many new roads, San Diegans became more mobile than ever. They could take a drive to the mountains and deserts, throw snowballs in the Cuyamacas, and show off sights to visitors from the Cabrillo Monument at the top of Point Loma in relatively short time.
Non-bicyclists in this area are requested to leave the freeway. Return to your automobiles and leave the freeway at once. The freeway is being closed due to numerous accidents in the area. Thank you.
Little bicycles, big bicycles, and every kind of 2-, 3-, and 4-wheeled cycle in between arrive bright and early for a bicycle ride on the new 805 freeway. With visions of long, uninterrupted concrete aprons stretching as far as the eye could see, the bicycle riders pumped and pedaled their way from El Cajon Boulevard across the big new Mission Valley Bridge and on north to the San Clemente Canyon. Because of the throng, numerous accidents resulted as the cyclists, speeding down the steep hills, overturned, ran over one another, and generally created wheeled pandemonium. Police, who expected to spend a leisurely day patrolling a few hundred pedal power advocates up and down the freeway, found themselves confronted with thousands of irate riders when the word came down to close the freeway due to the large number of accidents. 3 had to be taken to hospitals for treatment during the day. The call to close the freeway caught hundreds of riders at the wrong end of the thoroughfare, those who started in the south having pedaled north, and those who set out from the north suddenly finding themselves kicked off in the south. As the first cyclists began to leave, hundreds of latecomers began to back up from police roadblocks, not believing their ears when told their day on the freeway had been cut short. This is Gene Gleason reporting for TV8 News.
All right, there it is.
Normally, I would be very reluctant to walk down the middle of a freeway that's just opened, but you see, there is a catch. Even though they have the opening ceremonies for the freeway today, the freeway's not open yet. So you're expecting to take it today?
I was hoping to, yeah.
And now?
Now I gotta go back.
Okay.
Gotta take the long way.
The freeway just wasn't quite ready.
Well, it was that little bit of rain we had a few days ago.
The pavement was too wet to put down the striping.
Naturally, the striping is the very last thing before we can allow traffic on it.
Weather permitting, the freeway will open tomorrow afternoon, or more likely, on Saturday. Still, some vehicles tried it out today. Bicycles were first, and then a collection of classic and antique cars. We got a ride in a 1959 Olds convertible.
Little Italy today represents downtown San Diego's oldest continuous neighborhood business district. At one time, more than 6,000 Italian families lived in Little Italy and built San Diego into the center of the world's tuna industry. In 1908, the Italians began to fish for tuna. Prior to this time, tuna was never considered a fish to be marketed commercially, but by 1911, the first tuna canneries had opened. Even as the rest of San Diego was growing, Little Italy was reported to adhere to its traditional ways of life. Everyone spoke Italian. As a journalist for the San Diego Tribune wrote in the mid-1930s, even the dogs spoke Italian, and some of them wouldn't speak to you in English. Italians brought their own customs and traditions with them and made them distinctly American. The economic foundations of Little Italy, from its inception until the late 1940s, was the fishing industry. That included tuna fishing, fishing for sardines, supplying canneries, boat building, as well as supplying seafood retail and restaurants. The Italians brought with them their expertise in boat building, repairing and making large nets, and managing the factory floors of canneries. It was the First World War that greatly expanded demand for tuna, as people began to appreciate its taste. The industry grew from small family businesses to large family corporations. Some 14,000 were employed by the tuna industry. By the time of World War II, tuna was considered a standard staple.
Come with us to San Diego, that delightful subtropical city on the shores of San Diego Bay, away down in the southwest corner of the United States. There, the California Packing Corporation, canners of Del Monte Foods, has its modern tuna canning establishment. And from there, we invite you to journey with us on the good ship Navigator into the South Pacific realm of the fighting tuna.
They make their hasty farewells. And are underway heading south. A moment of prayer for added strength and wisdom.
We're several days out now. In the crow's nest, the lookouts are alert for the first sign of tuna.
We're only 200 miles from Panama now, and it's a good idea to get out our gear, the tools of our trade. We pick out bamboo poles that we like as carefully as a big league ball player selects his bat. It's got to feel just right. We file off the rough edges and sand the pole. If a wild tuna gets stubborn and decides to take the pole with him, none of our fingers are going along. One man with one pole can handle a fish weighing from 20 to 40 pounds. The hook gets bigger for fish from 70 to 100 pounds, and two men work a single hook. When tuna get to be over 100 pounds, they need extra coaxing. It takes the power of three men, three strong men with three poles tied to a single hook.
Oh boy, here's what we came 1,000 miles to get. Nice work there, chummer. Keep 'em coming. We're in a school of beauties now, and action, plenty of it. Talk about the poetry of motion. These tuna fishermen have it. And the fishing goes on. Goes on is right. Just look at them come aboard. A flip of the pole, up he comes off the barbless hook, and back goes the pole for another cast. As fast as tuna are caught, they're started toward the hold. They'll be on ice almost before they've stopped flopping. Just for a change, let's follow them below deck and see what's happening there. Hey, what is this, a polar expedition? Just look at that ice. And refrigerating pipes all around to keep the temperature down to freezing. The fish certainly will stay fresh in this temperature. Hey, here's a big one. Oh, say, it takes skill and muscle to bring in a fish that size, but our tuna fishermen have both. What a fisherman's paradise this is. That is, a very active fisherman. No place for a loafer, for even the smaller tuna weigh 20 to 30 pounds. From every angle, tuna fishing is a skilled occupation. and certainly no place for a slow man or a lazy one. And so, farewell to our blue water fishing ground. Hold well, Phil. The navigator swings her prow northward again, towards San Diego Harbor and home. It's the end of a perfect day and a perfect voyage.
By the 1960s, San Diego was considered the tuna capital of the world, processing more than 70% of all the canned tuna produced in the United States. With the decline of the tuna industry on the West Coast, and the destruction of 35% of Little Italy due to the construction of Interstate 5, Little Italy suffered nearly 30 years of decline. In the early 1990s, established property owners and family-run businesses decided to take their fate into their own hands. Today, the new Italian-American and non-Italian business owners alike are maintaining and operating retail and professional spaces.
Check out all in circuitry, aided by test pictures and patterns, originating from this room in the Cherry Hill Laboratory. It operates much the same as any television station. However, by using a closed circuit, engineers can simulate conditions such as distance. They can also create their own interference, so that they can be sure that a quality picture will be produced even under adverse conditions. When prototype cabinets and chassis have been checked individually, they are assembled as a unit. Then they are placed in a special echo-proof chamber to study sound characteristics. Sound systems and speakers are thoroughly tested.
The growth of San Diego State has closely paralleled the growth of the city of San Diego. San Diego began as a resort town on the Blue Pacific, a quiet town with simple tastes and an easygoing approach toward life.
San Diego State College saw an explosion of enrollment in higher education. It became a full-fledged university in 1972 and more than doubled in enrollment. The University of San Diego opened in 1960 with just 10 grad students. By 1980, it counted over 10,000 grad and undergraduate students. As the Vietnam War heated up, San Diego young men faced the draft for what became an increasingly unpopular conflict. There were anti-war demonstrations on local campuses. Racial tensions by black San Diegans began to escalate in the 1960s due to segregated neighborhoods. California Proposition 14 was a November 1964 ballot proposition that amended the California State Constitution to nullify the 1963 Rumford Fair Housing Act, allowing property sellers, landlords, and their agents to discriminate on ethnic grounds when selling or letting accommodations, as they had been permitted to do before 1963. Dr. Martin Luther King was on a speaking tour of California cities. He addressed crowds at both California Western University, now Point Loma Nazarene University, and San Diego State College, now San Diego State University, on the same day. Dr. King spoke out against California Proposition 14. King's address gave national context to the issues of segregation and racism prevalent in San Diego and California.
Welcome back. I'm Steve Price, and tonight for Marcella Lee.
I'm Carlo Cicchetto. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. visited San Diego a handful of times and agreed to one-on-one interviews with CBS 8 while he was here.
We searched our archives and found 2 of those interviews, including one that hasn't aired in nearly 60 years.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s trips to San Diego were short on time, but long on meaning, garnering support for the civil rights movement. In this newly discovered video from our CBS 8 archives, Dr. King spoke in 1962 with our respected longtime anchor Harold King.
Do you anticipate continued efforts to prevent Negroes from voting despite increased registration?
Yes, we still have a great deal of opposition. All types of conniving methods are still being used.
Dr. King, your rented college in St. Augustine, Florida, was hit by bullets early today. Does this indicate a new outbreak of violence in the civil rights struggle?
Well, it does indicate that there are still recalcitrant forces alive in the South that will do anything to prevent integration. But I must say that if these victories do not come through nonviolence, and if the vast majority of Negroes are not able to see definite gains, these other approaches may appeal to them more in future months.
You believe there's a possibility of serious bloodshed then if this frustration is not overcome?
Well, I hate to predict violence because I've found in so many instances that the constant prediction of violence is an unconscious invitation to it. But I must be realistic. If there is not a strong move to do something about the injustices that Negroes face, if there isn't something dramatic done, if the Civil Rights Bill does not pass with strength, I'm sure that it will so increase the discontent, the restlessness, the frustration, and the despair of the Negro that it will be much more difficult to keep the struggle disciplined and nonviolent.
Is there any possibility that you yourself might enter politics following your own advice that Negroes should be more active in this field?
Well, I haven't considered this at this point. I do think it is necessary for Negroes to become more political minded and for more persons of integrity and depth of understanding. I think it's necessary for them to enter politics, but at this point I feel that my job is in the civil rights struggle and one that should stay above both political parties and not become inextricably bound to either.
The Proposition 14 ballot measure passed on November 1964, in effect repealing the Rumford Fair Housing Act of 1963. Landlords could no longer discriminate on the basis of race.
You are demanding that this city will respect the dignity of labor. So often we overlook the worth and the significance of those who are not in professional jobs, of those who are not in the so-called big jobs. But let me say to you tonight that whenever you are engaged in work that serves humanity and is for the building of humanity, it has dignity and it has worth.
In 1600, I was a darky. Until 1865, a slave. In 1900, I was a nigger. Or at least that was my name. In 1960, I was a Negro. And then Brother Malcolm came along. And then some nigger shot Malcolm down. But the bitter truth lives on. Martin is dead. With Martin as our leader, We prayed and marched and prayed. Things were changing, things were getting better, but things were not together. With Malcolm as our leader, we learned and thought we had learned. Things were better, things were changing, but things were not together. And now it is your turn. We are tired of praying and marching and thinking and learning. Brothers want to start cutting and shooting and stealing and burning. You are 300 years ahead in equality. But next summer may be too late to look back. In 1600, I was a darky, and until 1865, a slave. In 1900, I was a nigger, or at least that was my name. In 1960, I was a Negro, and then Malcolm came along. Yes, but some nigger shot Malcolm down, though the bitter truth lives on. Well, now I am a black man, and though I still go second class, whereas once I wanted the white man's love, now he can kiss my ass.
We are saying that we are determined to be men. We are saying that we are God's children.
The Embarcadero cuts a scenic swath along the harbor front and connects today's downtown to its maritime roots. The Maritime Museum is a collection of restored and replica ships, giving a glimpse into San Diego's heyday as a commercial seaport. The Star of India was saved from the scrapyard and restored. The clipper ship is the oldest active clipper of its type, and just one of the many boats that make up the Maritime Museum. Beside it is the HMS Surprise, a replica 17th century British frigate, and is best known for its role in the film Master and Commander. Nearby is the Berkeley, a steamboat that once served as a ferry in early 20th century San Francisco. The USS Dolphin holds the distinction of having dived deeper than any other operational sub. The USS Midway is a 45,000-ton historical artifact. Commissioned at the end of World War II, it served as a temporary home for 200,000 sailors before retiring to its current location. On the massive deck, there are 29 vintage military aircraft restored to their original condition. Instead of smelly nets and oil-stained fishing boats, today cruise ships, pleasure crafts, and harbor tours tie up on the docks of the Embarcadero. From its present appearance, it is hard to remember that this boardwalk was built for a fishing fleet. Next came the San Diego Trolley, the first post-war light rail system in America. The 80s also saw the opening of a new naval hospital in Balboa Park and the massive San Diego Convention Center on the downtown waterfront. The downtown main library was replaced by a much bigger central library, steps away from Petco Park, with a rooftop reading room. San Diego's Gaslamp District is one of the city's oldest neighborhoods. The area has 94 historically designated buildings. The streets are lined with 19th century buildings restored to their original appearance. Today's Gaslamp District is full of restaurants, shops, and clubs that occupy former brothels and saloons.
Here's what's happening at 11. While thousands of people romped in the surf along the coast today, a fishing crew about a mile off the Carlsbad Beach harpooned a 15-foot-long great white shark. It weighed in at about 3,000 pounds.
San Diego was a minor league city in 1960. But then came the Chargers, and the local sports scene suddenly went big time. Before the decade was out, sports fans welcomed expansion teams in Major League Baseball and basketball, and minor league hockey. And two major sports venues were built on public land, San Diego Stadium and the Sports Arena. In 1969, the Padres moved to town. Within the next few years, voters approved a bond to build the multi-purpose San Diego Stadium in Mission Valley. The sports arena opened in 1966. After years of back and forth after funding a new stadium proposal, Charger fans learned in 2017 that their NFL team would be leaving San Diego and moving to LA. The voters approved construction of Petco Park, which introduced professional baseball downtown. It is the home ballpark of Major League Baseball's San Diego Padres and has been used as a venue for concerts, soccer, golf, and rugby. The park opened in 2004, replacing Qualcomm Stadium as the home stadium of the Padres. La Jolla means the jewel in Spanish and describes what was once a small affluent village and its beaches.
I don't know if I could really make you see it as it used to be.
It was a charming village.
The Institute was a little wooden shack by the cove, you know.
Yes.
We used to go in there to see all the wonderful things that they had in glass aquariums that they had brought in.
Mm-hmm.
So they had popular talks in this pavilion down there.
The other old landmark that I remember so well was the cove had the bathhouse, and they had I think they had some sort of a dance hall perhaps, and all sorts of things up on the top half where they sold ice cream and stuff. It was a concession sort of place, and they rented bathing suits and they had dressing rooms, and I remember.
We often had beach parties, picnics, and in those days we could have fires on the beach, which were wonderful. We've spent many hours watching the sea and reciting poetry.
Every weekend you found this stream of cars headed for La Jolla, where they could then park in the area of what we call downtown La Jolla, which was opposite the park. And there you would find the picnic lunches out there. The people there were very, very friendly. The storekeepers.
Well, we had a streetcar up until about 1938. It ran from San Diego up to Mission Beach and across the bridge and along what is now called.
It was truly a small town in all of the finest tradition. Everyone knew everyone else. There were no social distinctions or anything other than just a very congenial group of people
Small town living has been called the real America. America at its roots, its friendliest, its best. And today there still remain certain enduring and appealing qualities about small towns that haven't been forgotten. La Jolla was such a place, and La Jollans remember the fabric and texture of days and the village way of life gone by.
Beautiful coastline can be found here, as well as an elegant upscale atmosphere. The many cliffside locations of La Jolla make it an attractive backdrop to the brilliant views of the sea below. The cove seals and underwater kelp beds are a big draw for nature lovers. The cove teems with underwater life, making it a popular spot for scuba diving and snorkelers. Sea lions lounge on large rocks, lolling on top of each other, barking, and laying in the sun. Theodore S. Geisler, better known as Dr. Seuss, wrote most of his famous works from his La Jolla home, the Tower, the home he built on the western slopes of Mount Soledad. Mount Soledad's National Veteran Memorial, La Jolla's highest point, boasts a panoramic view of the whole county. It's currently the centerpiece of a Korean War memorial, enumerating the names of thousands of veterans who served their country during that conflict. The Salk Institute of Biological Studies, another 60s creation, chose the Torrey Pines Mesa as the new institute's home of the stark but iconic citadel designed by Louis Kahn. UCSD and the Salk Institute have spun off many high-tech and biomedical think tanks. Black's Beach is a secluded section of beach beneath the bluffs of Torrey Pines. Its distinction as Black's Beach is most known as a nude beach, and is also a popular place for surfing. Soaring over Torrey Pines, perched on the cliffs above Black's Beach, is the Torrey Pines Glider Port, which has one of the best views of San Diego.
The big change has occurred. Whether the people of Coronado or the residents of San Diego like it or not, the link is complete. Jack, this bridge has brought the change.
In a moment, you're going to see how the big change came about and why. Somehow all of this is and with all of that, we have lost a slice of the past.
Yes, Jack, you're right. But we're not living in the past. We're living in a changing world. It's all part of the big change. That's not right.
And with all of that, we have lost a slice of the past.
Yes, Jack. We're not living in the past. We're living in a changing world. Someday the sentimentalist will weep when this bridge is changed. It's all part of the big change. Jack, This bridge, the San Diego Coronado Bay Bridge, has brought the change. Progress is impossible without change. People who can't change their minds can't change anything.
1969 was a defining year for Coronado. The sleepy little military town was undergoing one of its biggest shifts with the opening of the Coronado Bridge and the development that followed.
Chevrolet presents San Diego and the Ramona Country. Romantic? Yes, indeed. Especially to this honeymoon couple.
A Spanish explorer gave Coronado its name when he drew the first map in 1602. The Crown one, the name he gave it, evolved into the nickname the Crown City. In 1886, a cast iron pipeline with a capacity of 10 million gallons of water per day was laid across San Diego Bay to connect the city of San Diego's resources to Coronado. Hotel del Coronado is a rare surviving example of a historical wooden Victorian beach resort. Opened in 1888, this historic hotel has been a popular vacation spot for celebrities, especially during the Prohibition era. From 1900 until 1938, Hotel Del's Tent City was a popular camp-style destination for travelers to Coronado Island who couldn't afford to stay in the big hotel. It was designed with a grid of dirt streets that eventually became well-worn thoroughfares. Over the years, the tents gave way to cottages, the last of which was torn down in 1941.
Across the bay from San Diego lies Coronado, easily reached by ferry. The trip isn't a long one and is really worthwhile, for a truly beautiful spa lies at the other end.
The Navy had a significant impact on how Coronado developed. North Island was originally called North Coronado Island because it was separated from South Coronado, now the city of Coronado, by a shallow bay which was later filled in before World War II, adding about 700 acres to the base. The Glenn Curtiss Flying School started there. Ellison, the first Navy pilot, came to North Island to train. The first Army and Navy pilots were trained at the Glenn Curtiss Flying School. The four major military branches have ties to this base. Another milestone was the opening of the San Diego Coronado Bridge in 1969. A cross-bay link had been proposed more than 40 years earlier, but the Navy feared that a terrorist attack or earthquake could maroon Navy ships for weeks. In lieu of a bridge, automobiles were ferried back and forth. But a new design raised the bridge deck 200 feet above the bay, and a new curving bridge was added to the city skyline. Hotel del Coronado's distinctive red tile roofs and Victorian gingerbread architecture have served as a set for many political meetings and movies. It's rare that a hotel can be considered a site in its own right, but few carry the panache of the Hotel del. Built in 1888, the all-wood Victorian construction has attracted a number of filmmakers during the 1940s and 50s for its scenic landscape.
I always feel that I work for the ones who work hard and they go to the box office and put down their money and they want to be entertained, or I always feel I do it for them. When the camera starts until it stops, that moment I want to be perfect. As perfect as I can make it.
Some Like It Hot was released in 1959, depicting the Hotel del Coronado as a Florida resort.
Daddy, I had no idea you're such a big girl.
Oh, sugar, you should have seen me before I went on the diet. Oh,
I mean, your shoulders and your arms.
oh well, that's from carrying that bull fiddle around all day. What's that?
You're so flat-chested.
Old friend Monitor and Garraway are host right now to the very likes of Miss Marilyn Monroe. I wonder if I'm scared of you. Are most men scared of you? I'm not sure whether I should be frightened of you or not.
No, nobody's scared of me.
I don't know. I bet a lot of guys are scared of you, though, because you're such an institution now. Really you are. You're a kind of a national possession. Do you feel that you belong to the nation as a whole?
I don't know quite what you mean by that.
I'm not
I
sure
live here.
That'll do it very nicely. I heard you were smart, but I didn't know.
I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Don't let me fool you. I'm not.
You know, you have a reputation as, among the great mass of people, I think, is probably the most beautiful blonde in the world, but a kind of a dumb girl because you're a beautiful blonde. And blondes and dumbness seem to go together. I think it all started with, maybe with gentlemen prefer blondes.
You know, it's interesting that people associate, if you happen to have blonde hair, you know, naturally or not naturally, however, or if you're not out of shape in some way, you're absolutely dumb. I mean, you're considered dumb. I don't know why that is. I think it's a very limited view.
It isn't true, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what the person, what they look like, what color hair they have.
Nonsense.
Or if they happen not to be out of shape. I mean, my time's to come. Gravity catches up with all of us.
Yes, slowly, but I'm afraid inexorably, if that's the right word.
It's been more than 35 years since Top Gun hit theaters, if you can believe it. It romanticized military aviation, pushed Tom Cruise to a whole new level of superstardom, and showed off the beauty of San Diego. The long-awaited sequel once again features San Diego, and it's pretty clear that America's finest city left quite an impression.
I feel the need for speed.
end is inevitable, Maverick. Your kind is headed for extinction.
Maybe so, sir. But not today.
So how is it that one can sit and stare at the ocean for hours? In a time when people began to have enough surplus income and mobility to vacation and travel, they made their way to the sea. For centuries, settlements have been built along oceans and rivers for practical considerations. But this attraction extends beyond how the sea has sustained civilizations. We are awed by the ocean. We've built areas for bathing, resorts, and luxury homes, lining coastal regions as a place of desirability. There is something beyond the movement of the water, the tides, and the rhythm of the waves, and its unharnessed mystery beyond our landedness, that attracts people worldwide. Like other seaside cities, San Diego is identified with the ocean as it is a place for gathering, soaking in the sun, sports, and rejuvenation. As with many oceanfront cities, San Diego's identity became intertwined with its beach culture. Two of them stretch from the Mission Bay Jetty to the cliffs of La Jolla. Mission Beach is a community built on a sandbar between the Pacific Ocean and Mission Bay. Pacific Beach is a neighborhood bounded by La Jolla to the north. Mission Beach is bounded by the San Diego River estuary on the south, and Mission Bay Park on the east.
There are more than 67 miles of beaches and shoreline within the city limits, offering a multitude of benefits to the citizens of San Diego. This is probably more than any other community in the United States. Mission Bay Park is one of the most popular recreational areas. It offers fun to citizens of all ages. Mission Bay Park is an immense playground, nearly 5,000 acres of land and water, devoted almost entirely to San Diego citizens. When the citizens of San Diego need a new recreational facility, it is planned, engineered, and constructed.
Surfing may have originated in Hawaii, but the modern surf culture is linked to the Southern California lifestyle. In the post-war years, surf culture blossomed. San Diego offers 80 miles of coastline. From Malibu to Laguna Beach to Pacific Beach, Santa Ana winds begin to arrive early in the fall and early winter, bringing coveted offshore winds that encourage smooth waves. As we look at the history of San Diego, we can see the many steps and phases a city goes through, as piece by piece is added to its infrastructure and it grows into a modern, thriving community. San Diego, America's finest city, was the slogan used in the 1970s to draw visitors to this fair city. San Diego has the reputation of perfect weather all year round, and this is true along the coastline where temperatures remain moderate. With livable temperatures over all 4 seasons, there are untold ways to spend your free time.
I stopped along the way. I'm gonna stay, yes he knows, 'cause I told him so. California dreaming, yeah, on such a winter's day, if I was Peter, if I was in LA, yeah, California dreaming, yeah, on such a winter's day, yeah, on such a winter's day, on such a winter's day. Oye, a mí me gusta gozar en California, porque yo me siento tan bien, y por eso yo te quiero, porque tú me